Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday webinar. This is going to be fun. What we're going to do is for the next half hour, 45 minutes or so, stretched out to an hour if we're with a little bit of luck, we're going to run through the business life cycle, okay? The strategies you might want to employ, the mental pain you're going to go through, I'll guarantee you that, and really some of the things you need to think about when you're right at the start or halfway through your journey or at the end of the journey. You just need to put in place some strategies, sorry, a bit of a cut lip, to make sure that the journey is as smooth as possible, right? And we're going to start with the start, right? Where you've got your U-Butte, here we go, right, in the beginning, right? When you've got this idea and you want to take it from a dream or an idea into actual reality, into production. Now, there should be a number of questions that are hitting your mind, because at that point in time, you're going to be wondering, is this really going to work? Like this thing I'm doing, is it going to work? And if you're buying into an existing business, or if you're trying to compete with a whole lot of existing businesses, clearly it works, but will it work for me? And how do I get started? And how do I manage the business? Because trust me, look, I've worked with a number of startups, and the difference from idea to implementation to actually running the business, that gap is significant. They're effectively two different people. All right, so you need to think about how you're actually going to run the business. And there's also how you're going to protect your ideas, which is quite a big thing. Now, right about now, if you're not experiencing self-doubt, you're not thinking big enough. All right, it's that simple. All right, if there's not some fear, some excitement, if there's not a bit of, well, you know, what do we do now? Let's go. If you haven't got that, think bigger. Okay, it's not that you're on the wrong track. It's not that your idea is a silly idea or anything like that. It's just that you're just not thinking big enough, right? You're not scared enough. I mean, really, that's what it is. Okay, all right, so, but if that's where you're at, don't panic, because that's where you should be. Okay, that's about the mental stage you should be in. Is just looking at this going, right, how are we going to do this? Or where do we go now? And this time is critical. Okay, this is where you're going to lay down the foundations for your success. Okay, this is where you take a minute, a day, a year. Takes as long as every stage will take as long as it takes. Okay, there's no set timelines. It's not like you have to have everything done in a week. But this is where you lay down all those little blocks that come together to make sure your business journey is as smooth as possible. Right, this is where you start looking at mitigating risks. It's where you start looking at who's who in the zoo. All right. And the big one, which we'll talk about in 2 seconds, why? Why on earth are we doing this? Okay. Now, these are the five big questions. In my experience, these are the 5 big questions that we've got to map out some answers to. You want to have ways of dealing with it. Oh, there you are. And make sure that you're on the right track and you've got all the support you need. You've got the advisors you need. You're building the team that's going to take you forward. And you're actually planning, and this is the last one, the timelines, when you're going to exit. Now, having said that, we'll deal with the last thing first. Okay, let's talk about exits for a second. Not everybody exits the way they plan. Okay, and not every planned exit goes absolutely according to strategy. But I guarantee you, if you do not plan your exit, you will exit in a way you didn't want to. Okay, and the earlier you start thinking about this, the easier it is to put in place structures to make that exit smooth and cost effective. All right. Now, I'll talk a lot about this at the end, but I've seen a number of occasions where businesses have just evolved organically, right? In particular, family businesses where people have come in and they've added bits and pieces here and there. And when it came time to sell, nightmare. Absolute nightmare. All right, cost them a lot of money in tax to restructure, and really quite painful. Now, let's go back to the start. What? Now, everyone has an idea, and here's where you really flesh it out. Okay, what is the problem you're solving? Because if you're not solving a problem, then you haven't got a business, you've got a job. All right. So if that's where you're at now, if you're not fixing a problem, if all you're doing is basically you're just an outsourced arm of somebody else's business, then really it's just it's a job with additional risk and more bookwork. Okay, so map out what the problem is. Okay, what is the big idea you've got to solve that problem? Okay, and here's the key one: why? Why are you the person to solve the problem? Why is your solution the answer? Why are you doing this? Because if you're just diving into business now, if you've been in there for a little bit, you'll know that it's a hard road. Right? It's just a grind. Okay, so why are you doing it? Now, the thing about why, and we'll go into this in a second, but that is actually the core. That is the heart of everything you do. It's how you measure your performance. It's how you structure your marketing. Everything you do revolves around why. Your staff, your team, they need to know why we're doing this, and they need to be on board with that. That needs to be the core. Culture is a word. Business culture, it's a word. It's a phrase. It's thrown around a lot. It means a lot to some people, and other people just chuck it in there because it sounds cool. Now, why is your culture? If you get that right, you've got half the battle won. Okay, because then everyone has something to focus on. You've got something to gather around. You've got a purpose, right? It's your mission. Okay, get that right. Okay, now who? All right, let's see. We'll just roll over. Oh, who's in the suit? Who are you? Who's coming on board? What sort of structure are you going to use? How are you going to do it? Like, are you going to put in place production lines? Are you simply providing a service? Do you need a team to provide that? Is the team onshore or offshore? What are you actually going to do to put your problem-solving solution into the marketplace? Okay. Also including in that is, of course, all of your marketing, your pricing, all that bits and pieces, all the minutiae, right, of business, right? The really boring stuff. And then timelines. When do you want to have this done? Okay, because there's two reasons I put that up there, and there's two reasons that it's critical. One is that if you don't put a set of timeline from start to finish, okay, you've got nothing to map your progress against. You don't know if you're traveling well or not, because you're just muddling along doing things when you feel like doing them. Okay, and the second thing is that when you do put timelines in place, that provides a degree of commitment and a degree of impetus. Right, you've got a deadline coming, can be somewhat motivating, right? And even if it's not a hard deadline, if it's simply one that you put there as an arbitrary line in the sand, well then great, work towards it. Okay, it gives you some focus. Right now, right at the beginning, right now, you don't need the answers. Okay, what you need to do is you need to lay those questions out and map them out. So you start thinking about all these building blocks you need to put into place before you actually pull the trigger and start business. Okay, now here's where the fun starts. Okay, so you've laid out that you've had a thought about what it is you need to do, right? You've got your problem-solving solution there ready to roll. You know what it is, and you've laid out your questions, so you've got an idea of what you need to know before we get started. Okay, now we'll just pause there for a second. If you've been in business for a while, okay, and I've done this. I've owned a few businesses. I've worked for a few large corporates, and what I'm talking about now, I've actually applied even technically halfway through the journey, where I've got a planned exit, especially with a couple of businesses we've had, and halfway through I've actually stopped for a second. I've gone right back to the start there and said, okay, well, hang on, what's our big idea? Why are we doing it? Okay, let's have a look at our structure. I've just revisited everything and made sure that we still had the right foundations in place, that we weren't trying to build on effectively a wonky base. Okay, so don't think that if you've been in business for a year or so or 5 years that you're not going to get anything out of today, that you're not going to actually revisit stuff, because all of this applies at the start, but you can apply the principles halfway through your journey if you wish. Okay, it's not a bad way of reviewing where you're at and making sure that everything's on track. Okay, because there's one thing I suggest people do is that when you sit down and have a look at your business, you just take that one step back, one step up, have a look over the top and just see where everything's at. But that's actually a discipline. That is an ongoing behavior that you need to put in place. But anyway, we're into the second stage. We're laying those foundations. And we're actually going to dig into those 5 questions and start researching and resourcing our sparkly brand new business idea. Okay, we're going to build that structure. This is where we actually have to be brutally honest with ourselves in regards to our skill set and our motivations and our desires and what we want to do after we've started the business, right? And after we've sold it, what are we going to do then? Okay. Now, talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is really the questions. This is the breakdown of the questions you need to answer. Okay. I'll cover the first two pretty comprehensively. Let's look at the third one, who. And this is where I've seen a lot of businesses struggle. It hasn't killed them, but they've done it harder than they had to, really have, okay? And really it's because of the first one, the principles. With your skill set, okay, with what you bring to the table, just be brutally honest with it, like be really harsh on yourself. Like, what are you good at? Like, you're in business now, you're providing an answer to a problem now because you're good at something, because you have a passion for something. Okay, and that's great, because without that, we're all in trouble. Okay, you might as well sit back and change direction now. That's fine. So write it down, like actual old school pen and paper. Write down what your skill set is. Okay, be hard on yourself. Like, what are you good at? What do you bring to the table? Right. On the other side of the sheet, write down, as best you know, all the skills and talent that you need in the business, all the stuff that needs to get done, and then have a look at how big that list is compared to your list. Right now, a couple of points. One is, if the lists are the same size, with respect, you're kidding yourself. I've never met, ever, in 33 years of business, or actually 35 if you go back to when I actually started work before uni, 35 years in business, I have never seen a business where one person does everything successfully, ever. And I have funded thousands of businesses. I've consulted with thousands of businesses on top of that. It doesn't happen. When really it doesn't happen. Right? So be hard on yourself. Figure out where the knowledge gaps are, and then you've got two options. One is you bring somebody in, you bring in a partner, you bring in a co-founder, you bring in some more directors, you bring somebody into the business who has those skills and wants to deliver what you're delivering to the market. Right? They've got a bit of that passion. They know, they want to get involved. They want to add to the mix. Bring them on board. Work out an equity model. Okay, can do that for you. Contact details at the end. Send me a note, email, give me a call, and we'll go through that. Or you outsource it, which is what, well, I don't know, 80% of the businesses in the world do. Okay, but everybody outsources to some extent. Some obviously more than others, right? But this is where, like, you're not an accountant now, unless you're building an accounting practice. Unless you're a lawyer, you're going to need a lawyer. You're going to need production staff. You're going to need bookkeeping. You're going to need admin. You're going to need all that stuff to get your idea to market. Okay, so there is no drama. There's no shame. There's no hassle in simply saying, okay, this is what I'm good at. I've got to need people to do everything else. All right, and then focus on that. Okay, HR. Now, I have enough HR knowledge to be dangerous. Okay, which is why I don't touch HR. All right, if there's a HR issue in the businesses I'm consulting with, if some of my friends have got problems and figure that because I do this, I must have the answer, I've got HR consultant on speed dial, and I've got a great HR lawyer on speed dial. Go talk to them. All right, I don't do it. Same with accounting and legal. Got enough knowledge to know when people are spinning me a line, but there's no way I'm going to consult with you. Go see the specialists. All right. That's where you need to be at, right? Mentors and advisors, and that's the third part of the puzzle is your mentors and your advisors. Okay, first part is why, second part is you, third part is them. Okay, and you'll be surprised where you find them. I will talk to them about that a little bit later, but don't be afraid to ask for help. If you've got passion for your business, if you really believe in the solution that you're delivering, you'll be surprised the people who volunteer advice. Okay, you ask them the question and I'll give it to you for free. Okay, it's there. All right, and in the middle there, legal structure. You know, now I know there's reasons that some people trade as a sole trader, and that's fine, but the vast majority of business, and the reality is that that's a very risky way to do business. And the reality is you need to sit down and spend some money with your accountant and your solicitor. Okay, both of them. Don't just go to your accountant and don't just go to your solicitor. Talk to both of them about what you're trying to deliver and get it put in place, the proper legal structure. And when you're talking about what you want to deliver, talk about how you want to exit. because that will have a bearing on how you set up. Because you really, the whole point of this, the whole point of what we're talking about right now is starting the way you intend to continue. Okay. Now, I say that knowing that in the future, businesses change, they morph, they evolve, they almost become their own beast at times. Okay. But that's not necessarily predictable. So let's not worry about that. If that happens, and we'll deal with it then. But right now, we've got a plan. So we're going to exit this way, so set up to go that way. If things change, we'll deal with that down the track. Okay, so with the legal structure, all right, you've got not just the ease of bookkeeping, but it's also things such as covering off risk, distribution of profits in a tax-effective manner, which is really just cost reduction. Okay. Sale of the business, bringing in partners, shareholders agreements. If you're in business in a company and you're not the sole shareholder, you need a shareholder agreement. Yep, I get it. The other shareholder is your husband, wife, life partner, puppy, dog. You really need a shareholders agreement. Seriously. Okay, if that's a scenario you're in. Okay, you need to make sure with the business where you've got other people involved that everybody knows what their role is, everybody knows how they're coming in and how they're going out. And if other people come on board, that you need to map out and document what impact that has on everybody's position in the business. Okay, so I'll say one more time. Get a shareholders agreement, get a partners agreement, something along those lines if there's more than one person in the business. All right, do it now. Okay, I've seen, again, so many examples where that was just not done and it went sideways. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a really cool example now. Back in the day, I used to work in agribusiness. Okay, I was a business banker, dealt with a lot of agriculture because that was the portfolio they gave me, which is cool, not bad. Enjoyed it, good times. A lot of family businesses in agribusiness, right? A ton of them. One in particular, actually a number of them were like this, but just one in particular had a number of family members. Okay, it had been inherited by one person who subsequently got married, and then some of their siblings came into the business. So by the time I came on board and they became my client, we had quite a conglomerate of assets and different parties involved, and effectively mini partnerships within the partnership. Now, the legal term for that is what an absolute nightmare. Okay, and I remember sitting down with them around the kitchen table. Oh, and by the way, four families married, and the wives' names were not anywhere. Not one asset had the wives' names on it, which is cool if they're running the business and they're carrying all the risk, except they weren't, and they weren't. So I remember sitting down around the kitchen table with them all one time and said, hey, listen, guys, look, here's what's going to happen from my side of the table is that in 10 minutes, I'm going to walk out of here and I'm not coming back until you have either restructured everything into a proper corporate setup, or you've got a partnership agreement that covers off everybody's liabilities and ownership risks and equity positions. Because what happens if he dies? And I just picked one of them at random, because I know that he's got some property in his name, some with him and him, some with him and him, and some with, like, what happens there? What happens if he gets divorced? And what happens if he falls under a tractor and is simply permanently injured? Like, what goes on there? And they're sort of looking and it's like, and what about all your kids? Like, where do they stand in all this? And you can see them, and like, none of them were stupid. Like, they're all smart people, all of them around the table, very smart people. And they're looking at me, and suddenly it's clicked, because it's not that they were stupid, because they weren't. It's that they'd never actually thought about it. They simply bought this and bought that, and they had some ideas and they did things that worked, and everything just hummed along, and which is really cool until one thing goes wrong. And it wouldn't even have to be the major thing, like the one person at the table who had his name on just about everything and was the key player. Okay, I'll take it. He could stay alive until forever. It doesn't matter, because you just need one of the other guys to fall over, and suddenly it's like pulling a thread on a jumper. And you start pulling and pulling, and suddenly everybody's naked. All right. So I said, go away. Talk to your accountant. Talk to your solicitor. And the good thing was with these guys is the relationship was strong enough to have a fairly brutal conversation. Not the first time we met, we got on quite well. We're mates. It's fine. I said, guys, this is going to be, I'm pulling punches here. Okay, this is ridiculous. This setup. Okay, it's wrong. I know how it's evolved. I appreciate that, but time now, change it now before it costs massive amounts of money. They did. Came back, took them a month and a half between their accountant and their solicitor, got it all restructured, happy days, risks covered off, wives covered off, everything nice and Mickey Mouse. Cost them some money. Like, that was not cheap to do, I can tell you now. But it did provide protection for everybody at the table. And that's the big thing. Would have been a lot easier if it had been done back at the start, but way back in the day, nobody was really thinking about that. It was just hard work trying to build the farm up. And that's fine. That's why you have talk about your legal structure right at the start. That's why you get your shareholder agreements right at the start. Okay? Start the way you intend to continue. Okay, you do the planning now, you avoid a lot of pain later. All right? And then, like I said, the how and the when. The production facilities, your finance, your marketing, your admin, your culture, your people. And you note that I've taken culture, admin, and people out. Admin is a organizational structure, how are things going to be administered. People is the team you're bringing in, okay? Culture is the glue and the fuel that makes it all happen and keeps it all together while it's happening. You don't flying apart, okay? So those 6 things, map them out. How are we going to do this? Okay. And really start with culture, right? Put that up top. Don't ever lose sight of that. That's the big one. That's the key. And when, like I said before, just map out a timeline. It's not always going to go according to time. Okay. You might think it'll take us 2 months to get the legal structure right. Well, maybe. Okay. It might take 2 weeks. It might take 3 months because the accountant's too busy or the solicitor's skiing in Aspen. Okay. Who knows? Right? But if you set a timeline, you've got something to work towards, you can always modify the timeline later rather than start trying to impose arbitrary deadlines on people because you forgot to do it at the start. Okay, so map it out. Don't forget the exit. All right, don't forget the exit. All righty. Now, this is where we sit back and you've already had a look at the market. Okay, this is not something you're suddenly doing. Okay, we know where the market's at. Okay, we have a solution to a problem. There's a niche there. There's a gap in the market where people just aren't doing things right. So we know what we're doing. This is where you take a red hot look. This is where you really dive deep into what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. So in essence, you can pick it apart and drive a truck right through their business. Okay, that's the plan. All right. You really want to have a look at your competitors, find their weaknesses, and then just go bang right through there. And this is also where you tap into your network, all right? And you start looking for advice. All right? Remember I was talking about mentors, okay, and advisors. But I've been to many call them networking functions, right? Chambers of commerce, industry events, professional development days. You know, if you don't do 20 a year, you're really a social bug living under a rock. And they're out there all the time. Even things like LinkedIn provide answers. And I've been constantly surprised, and I shouldn't be, but I always get surprised when people who I would least expect to offer advice actually quite willingly offer up their experience for nothing in a pleasant way to solve a problem that I'm having. And so this guy, like, you know, where did that come from? Okay? Because I believe in what I'm doing. Like, I'm taking small business from where you're at to a better place is it's fun, it's fantastic, it's problem solving, which is what I'm so passionate about. And when you talk to people about this, people, they go, oh, well, have you thought about this? And they've got ideas and they've got ways of adding value to the business. All right. Now, things about that is that with your mentors and advisors, you're going to get a third party, like an independent look at what you're doing. Okay? And that's what you want. Okay. You want somebody who is not seeing trees, they're seeing the forest. Okay. So it's not so much a case of what I'm trying to say is that don't be afraid of finding mentors and advisors. It's get up on your back legs and go find some mentors and advisors. All right. You'll be delighted with the difference it'll make to your business. Right? Now, I'm going to really pinch somebody else's lines here. There's a guy called Nick Bell. If you're on LinkedIn at all, look him up. One of Australia's rich list guys, young guy from Melbourne, young guy, God, he'd be in his 40s now, I think, or late 30s, right? digital, he's a bit of a tech guy, kinda, okay? Does a lot of digital, like Removify, one of his businesses. He gets rid of bad reviews. He's got digital agencies. He's just a very smart guy, very driven. And he mentioned, and this is something that, why I'm bringing this up is that he mentioned something the other day that really shocked me. Like we converse and we chat from time to time. And he said, like, when he started off in business, he didn't have a mentor. He was in business for 12 years before he got a mentor, and he was getting something like 30 or 40% annual growth, which is solid. Like, yeah, I know a lot of people have killed for that. That's pretty solid. Good going. He then found a mentor who could actually give him some nice impartial advice, and he started growing at 110% a year. 110% a year. Double your business. Wouldn't you like to double your business every year? Like, seriously. And that was the impact. He said that was it. Like, he had not had any mentors before then. He'd just gone in there and done what he thought needed to be done. And he said he found this guy who just gave him some advice on better ways of doing business, and suddenly everything clicked. Boom. Right. Now, make no mistake, Nick Bella's a gun. Okay. He is a genuine superstar businessman. And he found a mentor that made him better. Yeah, I've got a couple of mentors. I'm not stupid. I'll have them. Thank you very much. Guys who give me advice, sit back, one step back from the business, and it's impartial. One of them is actually my best mate. Right? He's been in business a long time, right? Worth some serious money, very smart guy, very conservative, and the advice he gives me is gold, and I get it for nothing. Right? Having said that, we also do it the other way around, because there are times when he just wants a third party to give him advice on where he's at, to make sure he's either doing the wrong thing, doing the right thing, or could just do both things better. Okay. And it doesn't matter how brutal we are with that advice. And at times we've said the odd word that, you'd be surprised to see a friendship survive it. That's cool. We'll go out to dinner the next night. Doesn't matter, because business is business with us. If you want advice, I'll give you the advice. If you take that advice personally and you think that's destroying the friendship, okay, well then perhaps the friendship wasn't that strong after all. So after all that, mentors, advisors, get one. Okay, find them. Go to networking events. Go to industry type events. If you're a tech startup, incubators, if you want some hits on this, shoot a question up in the Q&A, or send me an email when you get my contact details at the end. All right. Happy to share contacts all over the place with you. No dramas at all. Now, right, we've done all the hard work. Hey, we've got all our production lines in place. We know why we're doing it. We've got a great team. We've got some mentors lined up, like rows of tanks to take on the enemy. We're ready to roll. Yep. Now, let's make some magic. All right, let's make some money. Let's solve the problem, because that's why we're here. Okay. Yes, this is when it gets real. And no, there are no shortcuts, not at all. It will take as long as it takes, and the effort will be significant. Trust me. Oh my goodness. And yeah, it's not a job. Congratulations, you worked that out. You're not going to clock on at 9 and clock off at 5. If you can do that in your business, you've been there for a fair while, and you've got a pretty solid team behind you covering off all the gaps. Now, this is where some of your people from out in your circles from outside of business will look at you and I think you're crazy. They don't quite understand the hours you're working. They don't get it. They don't realize why you're not making $1 million a month in the first 3 weeks. All right, and that's cool. That's nothing new, nothing unexpected about that. Your resilience is going to be tested here, boys and girls. I'll tell you now. Okay, your willpower, your commitment. Roll with it. Okay, there will be some absolutely dark days. Okay, things will not go to plan. They really won't. And we've all been there, done that. I've had days where I've sat there and I've just looked at the office and just gone, what was I thinking? What am I doing here? This is insane. All right. And it's really because of the 3 big problems in business being people, people, and people. Right? Having said that, the 3 biggest assets I had in business were people, people, and people. So, you win some, you lose some. Right? But this is where, right, that top paragraph, I actually had that printed up and sat it over my desk, right, so I didn't forget. All right, you will be tested. Okay, it's just the nature of the game. Don't stress it. All right, when you're sitting there and you're wondering, is it ever going to work? That's cool. Think about why you're doing it. You're delivering the right solution, why you're the person to deliver it, and how your team's going to do that with you. Okay, and that's the key thing. Just remember that when you're in business, you're just part of a bigger team. Okay? Even if you own the place, you're not doing everything yourself. Okay, you don't have to do everything yourself. That's why you have a team around you, right? And together, the team is going to deliver the solution. All right. So I guess it's just like hang in there. Right? Don't think that because it's not going click in day one that it won't go click in day 5. And that just because it's going brilliantly and we're growing at 10% per week, happy days, and that's consistent. It's not like 10% this week and then 5 and then 4 and then 3. Like we've got this growth just going. Don't think that at some stage you're going to hit a road bump. You won't hit a bump, because you will. Okay, something will go sideways. Right? That's why you have solicitors. That's why you have HR people. That's why you have marketing experts. That's why you have an IT team. Right? They solve those problems. Okay, you worry about them, they fix them. Okay, it's sort of wrong, isn't it? You get all the worry and they get the fun of actually fixing the problem and making it all happen. But that's the way it is. Now, the timeline for this, right? Remember when you're drawing your timelines up? This will take as long as it takes. Sometimes with some project-based businesses, okay, I've seen one where they went from idea to exit in 9 months, and that was the plan. I'd actually planned to be out inside of a year, did it in 9 months, okay, and that's cool. That was the whole point of that. Was they had a trick solution to a little problem, and their plan was basically commercialize the solution, for want of a better word, as in actually figure out how to manufacture the machine that would fix this, get a viable product, like an MVP, okay, or basically a piece of gear that works, and then get bought out by one of the big guys in the game, because they would want that edge, rather than try and manufacture themselves and sell to everybody and go that whole road. The guys involved just looked at each other and said, look, they knew they didn't have the skill set to do it. They said they're just basically inventors and they can make stuff, but in terms of running a big business, not only did they not believe they had the skill set, they didn't want to do it. They wanted to get in, fix the problem, and sell that to somebody else to then manufacture, and then they can go off and do other things, which they did. The whole thing took 9 months. Brilliant. Smart guys, didn't muck around, got it done, happy days. And that was the whole plan, start to finish. And those guys are actually one of the inspirations for this webinar. I saw that and went, that's what people should do. I've seen so many people not do that. That's ridiculous. Let's talk about how that's done. Okay. Usually though, usually it takes years. Okay. It can be 5 years, it can be 10 years, it can be 20 years. You can be like Warren Buffett. Okay. Still going at, I don't know, how old's Warren Buffett now? 80 something, right? And not slowing down. It takes what it takes. Right? And that's really up to you. Okay. You decide if you want to be in business for 5 years or 10 years. Like some of the businesses that I've had, the idea was get in, build them up, and then sell them, and then go and do another one. And I've done that 3 times now, because that's what I do. Okay, I'm not a 20-year manager of a business. I'm a problem solver. Okay, give me a problem. All right, let's work out a solution for that. Let's fix this, get up and running, and then bang, we'll sell it to somebody else to run, and then I'll go and solve another problem. Okay, so this is the fun stuff. Okay, and this is the big thing, discipline. Oh my goodness. And I'm not talking whips and making your staff work slave hours. I'm just talking systems and processes, right? They are your best friends, particularly if you're starting off. Okay, cash flow salespeople, they all need systems and processes to work within. They need that framework. Okay, now I spoke a lot about cash flow yesterday. If you missed that, that's cool. Come back next Tuesday, I'll do it again. All right, I'll talk tomorrow about systems and processes when it comes to building repeat clients and customer advocates. If you think that's interesting, and it'll be interesting and fun, rock up tomorrow. Same bat channel, same bat time. Sales, you need to have a way of doing things that works, okay? And that's another thing we talk about tomorrow in detail, okay? Don't guess with this stuff, all right? When you find something that works, document it so we can do it again. Right? And again, make it repeatable. That's what business is about. It's not about this ad hoc, fly by your seat of your pants, make it up as you're going along stuff. That's startup world before you have an MVP. Right? That's trying to find your solution. And that's cool, works. That's why you do it then, because it works. It provides the answers. But once you've got your solution, once you've gone to market, You want to put in place systems and processes. And that is critical, and we'll find out in a few slides' time, to actually successfully exiting. Okay, so you want to get out, you need that. Okay, because it does two things for you. It builds your business. Okay, I know business is all about emotion. It's about the passion. It's about engaging people. It's about the stories you tell, the magic of doing business with you. Okay, that's key. Without that, you got nothing. Business is also about the numbers. It's about all that magic repeating. It's about having a foundation that makes sure that you can do that again and again and again. Right? So when you're planning out and when you're actually in business, document everything you do. Right? Literally write it down. Create a knowledge hub of how you do things, why you do things, and how you fix things. Now, some of that will come from your customers. Surprisingly, they'll find the mistakes you make in about 3 heartbeats, and they will, about 2 heartbeats later, give you an idea of what you need to do to fix it, probably, which may or may not be implementable, but at least you're getting some feedback. Right? We'll talk a bit about that tomorrow as well, but this is where you find some of your answers. This is where you find your improvements. Okay, now think for a minute. When do you think you need to start improving your business? Is it after you've been in business for a couple of months? Is it a year later? Do you do reviews every 3 years and look for improvement? Is it a quarterly process? Now, different things for different people, but I'm a firm believer that you start to improve your business the day you open the door. First day you actually do business is when you start improving, okay? And the reason for that is that as soon as you start interacting with your clients, some of your preconceptions will be blown away, okay? Some of the things you thought were going to work won't, because even the best laid plans of mice and men go to pieces when you put them into action, okay? So have, as one of your systems and processes, have a system of continual improvement, okay? Make that a thing in your business, okay? And encourage your team to come up with ideas. Now, a suggestion box is a really cool 1950s thing, I think. Apparently my grandfather said that was something back in the day. Just make it, not necessarily an open door policy, but just make it very clear that any and all ideas for improvement are welcome. No guarantee they're going to be implemented. Some may be physically or financially impossible, but get the ideas. It does 2 things. One, gives you a nice source of ideas to make the business bigger and better and brighter and shinier and more profitable and all that really cool stuff. But secondly, and just as importantly, is that it's inclusive. Okay, if you're doing that with your team and with your customers, particularly with your customers, because they've got ideas that you probably never think of. Okay, and remember, they're the people actually implementing your solution. Okay, so listen to them when they talk to you about the improvements. Okay, you do that with them, and suddenly you're being inclusive. All right, everyone's part of the team. You're bringing them in. You're sharing the magic. Okay, human nature is such that we all want to belong to something. Okay, right. Use that. That is a powerful tool. Okay, particularly with your customers. And I'll hammer this tomorrow. Okay, if you want to listen in tomorrow, you'll hear me rave on about this. Okay, ask them for improvement suggestions. Right, bring them in, help them build your systems and processes. Okay, your business will thank you. Okay, now there we go. Sorry, I just forgot I had this. I forgot I had this next slide. Okay, now. Let's run through these nice and quick. Okay, strategies to build repeat business. That is tomorrow's webinar. If you can't make it at 11, register. You'll get a recording of it. Okay, even if you're a one-off, right? You're a service. You're a solicitor who sees somebody to do a conveyancing and you don't see them again until you're dealing with their will. What about referral business? Strategies for that. Okay, staff turnover is too high. That can be a real issue, particularly if you're losing skilled staff. You need to have a really hard look at that. Staff turnover is too low. I had that situation once. I'm sitting there and I really wanted to get rid of somebody and I had to find a way to do it because they were simply not working out. Okay. Strategies for that. Production is inefficient. Cash flow is constrained. Talked about that yesterday. Okay. There are systems to monitor that and to find solutions. Okay. Put them in place. All right. Competitors are developing better products. You need to keep your eye on the market all the time. Okay. And that's That's easy to say. It sounds a bit glib, a bit obvious, but there are times when you are buried in the business. You're so deep in actually providing that solution that you literally don't have the time or the energy to look at what the market's doing, and they can get away from you a little bit. So make time, systems and processes, okay? Book an appointment with yourself to go on a coffee date and check out what the competitors are doing, okay? If that's what it takes. But never take your eye off them, okay? Even when you're buried, do not let them get away. Now, exit stage left, okay. Remember I said right at the start, plan your exit before you plan your start, because that is how you're going to set up a lot of your structure. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go to basically 3 simple exit strategies, okay? The 3 most common. Now, and the reason I'm doing that, okay, and the reason that I really am fired up about this is that it's the most forgotten part of business planning. And if we just cast ourselves back 1 second to my story about my clients, the kitchen table, the family thing, they hadn't planned an exit at all. They really hadn't thought about it. And that was one question I threw at them. And I'll tell you what, you want to see a whole lot of really yappy adults go dead silent, just ask them, okay, so what happens if somebody wants to sell? What happens if you all want to sell? And they're just looking around the room. It's like they hadn't actually really thought about it, because they were sort of, they might pass. I said, what if your kids don't want it? They're always going to pass it on to the family. I said, yeah, but what if the kids don't want it? And how are you going to make that sharing equitable if they do? Like, where's your exit strategy, guys? Didn't have one. Good. When you're working it all out, go away, sort it out. Okay. Do that at the start, and the pain is much less. Okay. And this is why. As I was saying, there's so much time you put into basically making it happen that most people in business forget about getting out the door. Now, it's not the end of the world if you haven't. All right. I'm not pretending for 1 second that it's going to be all gloom and doom and disaster if you don't have it all set up right. Sometimes, and a lot of times, you can restructure, or you can get things put in place over a 2 or 3 year time frame. In fact, I've got a guy I met the other day who specialises in that. That's his business, is getting people ready to exit. Okay, so he works on a 3 year time frame, with the first 12 months being getting the business to the point where the owners can take Friday off. Now, I'm kind of the opinion that, if you should be doing that a lot earlier than just before you're trying to exit, but that's what he does. Okay, so it can be done. There's no doubt about that. So don't panic. So we're going to go through the 3 most common ones right now: trade sale, family handover or buyout, and liquidation. Now, don't panic. Liquidation is not calling in the toe cutters. All right, it's actually just winding the thing up, selling off the little bits and pieces, and going your own separate ways. Now, trade sale. If you want to go to the trade sale route, no, hang on 1 second. I'm not going to cover off IPO. Okay, going public. That is its own monster. All right, if that's where you want to go, if you're looking at that sort of that going public global scale type of thing, whoa, come back. There we go. If that's what you're looking at doing, then you need some specialist advice. Not necessarily when you're starting, but certainly when it comes to getting ready, you're going to roll into some merchant bankers who will run you down that path. So let's just look at the 3 ones that most people do. Okay. Now, if you're going to do this, if you're going to sell to one of your competitors, or sell to one of your staff, or sell to somebody who just wants to get into the industry, okay, bring in a business broker. And to be honest, if that's what you want to do, I would suggest talk to a business broker right at the beginning, like right when we're planning all of our strategy, all of our why, who, when, where, how. Get a business broker in there as one of your advisors. And just say, okay, we're thinking about selling in 10 years' time. If you're selling this sort of business, what are the purchasers looking for? Because they will know. Okay, it's kind of what they do. Right? There's been a number of times where I've tried to organise finance for people to buy a business, and the record keeping is a mess. There's no clarity. I mean, if I'm going to go to a bank or to a finance company and say, hey, listen, we just want a lazy $2 million to buy this, but we've got no idea really of client mix, of where the debtors and creditors are sitting at, how the cash flow drivers are working. There's no real systems. I just do it as they do it. That's a hard sell. I'll tell you now, that's a real hard sell. And if you're in that scenario, you're actually doing yourself out of money, because no one's going to pay a premium for a business where they've got to go in and reinvent the wheel and figure out what it is they're doing. Okay. Now, one thing you might want to consider is as you're going out the door, try and think of how the new owner can add value. What stuff that you haven't been able to or didn't want to do, but it's still a viable opportunity for the business to exploit. Okay, because that's the sweetener. Okay, that's the cream on the cake. Now, the other side of it is the family handover and buyout. Now, this is like a trade sale, only kind of different. All right. If you're starting this plan early, you've got family members in with the passion and the skills. Happy days. It's a much smoother takeover. Don't panic too much about the skill set, because they can learn that on the way through. But they've got to have the passion. Okay, they've got to have the passion, because that's the thing that'll get them over the line. All right. Now, if you're going to do this, just remember that succession strategy. Put it in place, and remember that a deal is a deal. Okay. When it comes time to hand over and walk away, right? Unless you're invited back in as an advisor, mentor, employee, chief bottle washer, whatever. I've seen a couple of these, again in agriculture, where there's been an easy family handover. In both of them, sorry, in one, the eldest son took over because the other kids had left. In the other, second son and daughter took over as a partnership because the oldest son had died, and mum and dad just couldn't let go. And in both cases, the kids had had ideas, like they had things they wanted to do, and mum and dad just couldn't walk away. And it made things difficult. It slowed stuff down. It caused friction that was really counterproductive. All right. So if you're going to go down this road, that's cool. Just remember, a deal is a deal. All right. And it's the same as with the trade sale. Make sure that you've got your records, Mickey Mouse. There are systems and processes. There's clarity. So even if the person who's taking over has been in the business for 10, 20 years, it's still that clean handover. Right? Don't assume they know everything, even if they tell you they do. Make it nice and clean, and away you go. Okay, it's a happy exit, which is what you want. Now, the last one is liquidation. And this is usually an option of last resort when you simply can't sell, there's nobody to buy, or it's a skill set type venture, okay, where it's simply you on your own. There's no real client book, it's a lot of one-off stuff. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because businesses are like that, okay? You get some where that is simply the way it is, okay? That's cool. In that scenario, set your structures up at the start so you can maximize the cash you're taking out and go for it. Happy days. Okay. It's not a bad thing. Okay. Just make sure that you minimize the investment in the business. Okay. That you don't overcapitalize to any extent if you're not creating value that you can then sell to somebody else. Okay. And that's it. Okay. We're finished pretty much right on time. There's my contact details. Okay, so if there's any questions at all you've got, fire away with an email, give me a call, and we will happily run through some solutions for you. And as always, Business Station, AusIndustry, and RDA, thank you very much. They're the guys delivering this for you. So thank you for attending. I really appreciate you turning up, and hopefully I will see you tomorrow, and we'll run through a whole lot of really cool stuff when it comes to getting repeat customers, getting some client advocates, basically a free marketing team out there spruiking your business for you. Thank you very much. Cheers.